Councillor Peoples, would you be able... No, I'll go to the other end. Councillor Plum. Maybe you will last one. Councillor Arthur.
No, it was Councillor Hanson's turn because we're going down this way.
I'm happy to take your suggestion on board, Councillor Plum. Councillor Hanson, would you mind leading us in prayer? No. I'm in a good mood today. Thank you.
Let me find the prayer first.
Sorry, Councillor Hanson.
You put me on the spot. Ready to go?
Yes.
Right. Almighty God, we acknowledge that we have a responsibility to look after our creation, especially this region we call Barcaldine Regional Council. We are also conscious of our decisions, that our decisions are going to affect deeply the lives, land and property of the people we have come here to serve. Remind us to exercise respect for each other, each of our fellow councillors, staff and for the people of our region. Help us in this morning to act wisely, justly and intelligently in all our deliberations. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of both leading and serving, and assist us to do these well.
Amen. Amen. Councillors, unfortunately we have a number of condolences this month. Mrs Shirley Winters and Mr William James Wilson of Aramac, Mr George Walsh Rogers of Milton Street in Alpha, Mr Morris Henry George Odell, better known as Morrie, of Colorado of Jericho. Are there any more? Not a good month for our community. If we can please observe a minute's silence. Thank you, councillors. Staff.
George Rogers.
Is he missing on that one, is he?
George Rogers.
Oh yeah, Wallace is his middle name. George Rogers.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a bit going on there. Oh, we're having one or two there. Okay. Right, I will just advise that we are having a site visit to the Globe at morning tea. Have a look at construction there, so we're ready for some outside. Hopefully it's not as windy. All right, there are no true apologies, but I would like the record to clearly reflect, and I'm sure the video recording will do so, that the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rogers, is attending today's meeting via Zoom. And under special provisions enacted as a result of the pandemic, her attendance via Zoom is considered the same as in person. So for periods of closed sessions, we will, or any prescribed conflict of interest issues that arise, we will undertake the necessary mute procedures from this end. I will ask Councillor Rogers if you can indicate your vote verbally in case there's a time lag between your hand going up or down. So if you can just say in favour or against, please. Sorry, I meant to ask you to do that yesterday. And if I just ask the indulgence of councillors, if there is a slight time lag, Councillor Rogers wouldn't be intentionally speaking over you, but I will keep checking periodically to make sure that there's no further contribution before we close discussion or debate on any particular agenda item. I'd like to, all the staff are present? Yeah. Just like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which we meet and gather here in the Barcaldine Regional Council area, and their elders, both past, present and emerging. Right. PCOIs. Described declarations of prescribed conflict of interest.
Thank you.
If I can start with Councillor Rogers, please.
Can you hear me, Sean?
Loud and clear.
Yeah. I've got a prescribed. Oh, actually, sorry. Yeah, I'm okay.
All clear? Thank you. Councillor Plum, any PCOIs?
Yeah, I have a prescribed in 3.3.7, so I would like to inform the meeting that I have a prescribed conflict of interest in 3.3.7 procurement policy review, as my employee Eldersville Services uses the Buckhorn Regional Council procurement to quote on required goods and services.
Thank you, Councillor Plum. That's the only one? You have done extensive legwork here, Councillor. So Councillor Arthur, sorry. So you're declaring agenda items 312, 313, and 337 for the same reason in each case, in that a close associate of yours is a major supplier of goods and services. That close associate is Michael Horman Transport, and their relationship as a close associate is that they are your employer.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Right, I can shortcut that. So for the record again, 312, 313, which are the two tender flood damage packages, and 337, which is the procurement policy review. None further come to light?
No, and I'll be leaving the meeting, so I won't.
Yes.
This matter's discussed on
For complete clarity, Councillor Arthur has also sought clarification just to ensure that there is no prescribed or otherwise conflict of interest for the plant replacement items, graders and rollers and four-wheel drive utilities. I advised him prior to the meeting that that is just, it may not even be just ordinary business, it is non-competing, non-conflicting items. So, moving on.
I don't believe so, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Keith.
Mr. Mayor, I'll declare a prescribed COI in items 3.3.4 and 3.4.2.
Is that 334?
And 342,
Yes.
as these the schema park is mentioned in these reports, and my business has supplied goods for that project, so I'll be leaving the room. I will also declare a BCOI, Mr. Mayor, for I think it is 3.7.1, which is the DM Aramax report. If there is any mention on the Outback bakery and it's possible to be sold and leased, because I am in direct conflict with that, because I do so at the moment, and I will leave the room in 3.7.1 also.
Okay. Councillor Peebles, you did not mention 337.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to mention 337, the procurement policy, that I will be leaving the room because I do business with council and have a prescribed conflict of interest.
Through your business known as Aramac Cut Price.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm having a bit of an iPad failure here, Brett. I did send you all of those, and I just want to make sure, is there anything else there I've missed? I have got a couple declared there that I've still got to...
Yeah, we'll get to them in a moment.
Is there any PCOI that I've missed there, Brett? I think I've got everything that I initially put here.
While we're looking at that, I have no that I'm aware of. Does any councillor present wish to inquire as to the possibility of a PCOI for any other councillor present? Being none, I'll go to declared conflict of interest. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a conflict of interest in 3.4.2, the project progress report as defined by the Local Government Act. Because I'm connected to the Sculpture Trail, which is mentioned in the report, I don't think that, because it's a report, I feel as though this is not a sufficient significance that will lead me to make any decision contrary to the public interest. So I acknowledge that I might have to ask the remaining councillors whether I can stay in the room or leave for this matter.
councillor present wish to move a resolution? Actually, Councillor Rogers, as this is a previously declared conflict of interest upon which council has already ruled that Councillor Rogers can remain in the room, unless I have a resolution to change that position, the existing status stands. I do not, so you're welcome to remain in the room and participate in discussion relating to well, there's no vote, so it'll be just discussion on that item, councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Plum, do you have any DCOIs?
Mr. Mayor, I have a DCOI in 3.3.3 planning report, number 2, development and assessment, number 1, which relates to the flood mitigation, to the city card, because I have a family member that has been associated in this matter. And I wish.
So this is a previously declared resolution as well, upon which it has been deemed that you leave the room.
Yeah.
So unless there's a resolution from councillors present to change the status quo on this particular line item, Councillor Plum will leave the room for any discussion relating to that agenda item. There's no alternative resolution, so that is what we'll do this time.
Yeah, I just thought that it was only a report. And
yep. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Arthur, ready?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hanson.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Just remind councillors present that Councillor Hanson has declared previously a conflict of interest, a declarable conflict of interest in the procurement policy review, upon which the 3 councillors who do not have a PCOI in that chose to allow Councillor Hanson to remain in the room for the purposes of just both discussion and vote and debate and voting on that resolution. Do either of those 3 councillors wish to change their mind on that point? Councillor Rogers?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So that previously declared DCI stands with its current interpretation. Councillor Gleeson, do you have any DCOIs?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just ask for advice. Declarable may be declarable in the procurement policy. To tell you the whole truth, I don't even know whether my son-in-law has gone onto the vendor panel, but if he was discussing about putting his unit on the vendor panel, and I'm just asking, is that I'm declaring it and asking the rest of the...
I can tell you can't have gone on vendor panel because you haven't called.
There's a new tender, Mr. Mayor,
but it hasn't been approved
for the next 12 months. And my son-in-law was thinking about putting his unit on that, and I don't know whether it has happened. So
it can't have happened yet because it hasn't come to council. So, but the fact that he has expressed an interest means that he will be captured by the procurement policy, because it clearly states the procedures for the awarding of tenders. I think your declarable conflict of interest should stand, and the remaining 3 councillors, Rogers, Hanson and Dillon, will now discuss whether you should remain in the room. Do you intend to ask councillors, or do you wish to stand and leave?
I feel as though that I would like to ask councillors, because I don't believe at the present time my son-in-law is still contracted to Adani and also to another job up at Nebo. So I just wanted to let everybody aware and ask the question.
Councillor Hanson and Rogers, this is a very similar DCOI to that we've dealt with historically for Councillor Hanson in a family member or a relation or an associate who potentially may do business with council via our vendor panel process. Do either of you have an opinion as to whether we allow or do not allow Councillor Gleeson to stay in the room for the discussion and the debate?
I would let him allow to stay in the room, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Rogers?
I'm comfortable with allowing him to stay in the room at this present time, Mr. Mayor. Did you hear my reply, Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, Councillor Rogers. Yes, I did. I was just taking advice. Okay, do I have a resolution from either of the three of us? Councillor Hanson moves that Councillor Gleeson be allowed to remain in the room for the purpose of the discussion of agenda item 337 and debate and vote on that. Seconder?
Melinda.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Any debate? Not being any debate, I'll just pass comment. This is an almost identical situation, as I said before, to Councillor Hanson, so the precedent is clear. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Rogers in favour?
Yes.
3-0. Councillor Gleeson, do you have any further? DCLI?
No, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Peoples?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare a DCOI 3.1.3 as I'm in partnership in a racehorse with one of the tenderers in that item. So I will declare a DCOI because of that association I have with one of the tenderers, and at this stage, Mr Mayor, I think I'll just I will leave the room.
That is 313.
313, yep.
Did he not tender for 312 as well? Okay. Right, very good. No more? Councillor? No others?
No, sorry, Mr Mayor, no, that's it.
Thank you. All right. Just a reminder for the resolution that we just passed, quorum is not required, so the 3-0 vote could be construed as not meeting quorum. However, the sole time that a quorum is not required for a council resolution is when the matter is dealing with a prescribed or declared a declared conflict of interest resolution, where there are not the minimum number of councillors to make quorum. So if anybody's curious as to why we allowed a 3-0 vote, that's the only time we can do it.
Mr Mayor, I have a question. It's somewhat connected. With the declaration of the PCOIs and DCOIs, we're dealing with the matter of that as opposed to the item. Which meant, like, what I mean is, because if I have a prescribed conflict of interest, I have to leave it when we discuss that item, but we remain in the chamber when we discuss the impact of the conflict of interest of other.
Yeah.
Is that a procedural?
It's not, although every time we debate it and discuss it, I stand ready for somebody who shouldn't speak to speak. Don't worry, it's on my mind. So, for example, in the debate that the three of us just had around Councillor Gleeson's, it would be highly improper for the three PCOIs to comment in that, so that because they have no ability to debate the issue, they also have no ability to participate in the debate or discussion surrounding the allowance or not allowance. So, because it could be seen that they're exerting undue pressure or influence. It is not without precedent in other chambers that those councillors have been asked to leave because of things to do with their body language or their demeanour. So they've turned and physically, are you seriously going to allow that type of, without speaking, they've said 1,000 words. So, but because of the professionalism of the councillors in this chamber, I've never felt the need to ask those PCOI councillors to leave while we discuss that. And I'm not suggesting it's unprofessional in other chambers, but there certainly has been instances around the state of where councillors have had to leave even at that stage of the debate, because we're not dealing with the item there, you're quite correct,
Yeah.
we're actually dealing with a meetings
The
procedure.
declarations of the conflict and how that's handled.
It's not proper for a councillor who has a PCOI in that matter to even move a procedural motion against the chair or anything related to the debate. So they are effectively mute with no voting powers at all under the regulations on that respect. It's a good question. It's a good question. These things catch me a bit too. You've got to hope that no one
To
speaks
date,
out
I
more.
don't think anyone has broken that protocol. But
No, it's a little bit. And it's very complimentary to the councillors who clearly understand that they're not allowed to vote, and they feel a little frustrated about that sometimes because it's perhaps out there a bit, but then, anyway. All right, 311, confidential report. I see no need to take this into... Oh, sorry, I reckon I've forgotten to do the minutes more times than I've remembered in 18 months. Have we only got the one set? We do. Just bear with me while I get the can open. Can I have a motion to receive the minutes, please, of the general meeting held 18 August? Councillor Plum, seconded Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? Carried.
Yes.
7-0. Are there any alterations to those? Okay, can I have a motion to confirm those meeting minutes, please? Councillor Gleeson, Councillor Hanson seconds. Those in favour? Carried. Petitions?
Yes.
Any petitions? No. Now I can go to 311. I don't see any need to go into closed session for this. I don't see in fact how we actually could go into closed session to discuss this. Brett?
Mr. Mayor, the council is considering going into a joint venture partnership with Sunshine Energy over the Barkhorn Renewable Energy Zone, or for the Barkhorn Renewable Energy Zone project. Before we even consider that, we need to complete a due diligence review of that proposal. So I approached a company that does that work and obtained a quote and engaged that company to commence that process, and I'm asking council's endorsement for that action.
Questions before we go to debate, if there's a need for it?
Did you ask, Mr. Mayor, is there a need for it?
No. Question. Right, do I have a mover for the resolution? Councillor Plum, seconder. Councillor Hanson. Debate. There being none, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against? That's a yes. Thanks, councillor. 7-0. Okay, tender award, flood package 1. You don't want me to bring you back in to take you back out again for 313?
that'll be fine, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peoples will let you know when we're discussing that because he'll be leaving. Righto. As presented, recommendation, assessment is included.
Mr. Mayor, the packages are there, the roads that package relates to are listed in the tender summary.
Are there any questions, councillors?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, is there a timeline for this work to be actually completed?
The works have to be completed this financial year. That's my understanding of it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, they have to be completed by 30th of June. But in terms of the package, I'm not sure whether there was a timeline given in the tender for the completion of that work. We can find that out for you.
I think that goes to a broader question.
It does really, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and it's one that I'm happy to have the discussion or consideration of now. So if you want to go to, I've got an opinion on something there, but have you got somewhere you want to go to with that, Councillor?
I'm just through you, Mr. Mayor. Just I know he's been awarded work before, and I'm aware some of it hasn't been completed. So I'm basically asking the question: can all this work be completed in the timelines we've been given to spend that money?
I'll go further than that. The simultaneous answer. Can it be done in the financial year? It can be done in such a way that is advantageous to our road maintenance program. As in, if this is all left till the end, we'll have many sections of road that, you know, we'll have to provide maintenance to these roads or let them deteriorate, like the Muttaburra-Hewenden road's been allowed to deteriorate. It probably doesn't only reflect the tender in question here, but all contractors. Have we exhausted the ability for the local, for anyone to do this work? Because we've consistently said that flood damage is the ticket to lower our maintenance costs when it arises. But if we're not, because we're awarding tenders and work's not starting for 2 months post-tender award, given that in some cases these roads are in a just bear with me, this relates to which event? 19 or 20? Either way, it doesn't matter. It's not 21, that's for sure, because it hasn't been approved. So we're talking about work that's been undertaken to rectify damage that was incurred at least 18 months ago, if not 2.5 years ago. Yes, emergent works would have occurred, but that would have long since deteriorated. So I am equally as concerned to Councillor Hanson about the broader question of contractors receiving works. Admittedly here it's purely on the basis of price. The assessment is what it is, but you've only got to read the subtotal lines to know that the recommended tenderer here is the cheapest. But if we're backing all of these up purely on the basis of price, especially flood damage, which is not our money, and we're not getting the work done, or we're not actually alleviating our road maintenance schedule, then are we in fact taking the best option?
I think the other thing too there, Mr Mayor, just to lead on to what you're saying, is that we're copping a lot of flack because of the state of our roads. And, you know, the quicker we can get our contractors onto these roads, the better off we're going to be too, you know. Because there's a lot of criticism of the state of our roads across our shire. So we need them done ASAP, not being banked to when we can get to them.
And to the point that if that requires outside contractors, because there's only one local here, is that correct? I'm not familiar with who Tollbrook are. Given their local content. Oh no, sorry. They're not a local business, so there's only one local contractor submitted a tender for this. So anyway, does anyone wish to comment? Officers, I'll throw the floor. We've had questions with positions stated at the same time. So yes, right. Sorry, councillors, we're getting question answered here.
The queries and the questions that have been asked, I concur with that and I agree with that. There needs to be a set time put to a works order. If we put out a tender, X amount of road, whatever it may be, I think we need to start putting down the start dates of those works that need to occur and the finish dates. And if we don't put that in there, we kind of leave the contractor up to his own devices. And there needs to be some type of a power to say, okay, you know, you told us you're going to be doing this such and such time, you haven't done that. There needs to be some type of power that will help us to resolve that issue. Yeah.
So, is awarding these today, in light of that, is awarding these today premature, given that we've got no certainty around when or if any of these things are going to start any time in the next foreseeable future? Yeah, are these open opportunities that council's not comfortable with awarding today? Now, bear in mind, if that information was not in the original tender information, it could quite possibly be the case that we may have to re-tender them, which will come at another cost.
Mr Mayor, I think you've gone through a fair bit of cost and what have you to get to this stage. I'd be suggesting that the tenderer that is successful be given the choice, look, we're going to award this to you, but we want this completed by such and such. Are you happy to take this contract along those lines?
This is how we end up with flood damage event on top of flood damage event on top of flood damage event, which is why the 2021 jobs are not still, are they sorted yet? No, because we've got damaged road on top of damaged road that still hasn't been repaired 3 years post-event. We've got the same change on some roads concurrent over 19, 20, 21, which we only get paid to fix once. The emergent works each time, but we only get the actual restoration works once. If the work, if for example, this work is looking at a number of roads, a number of them, if they're not done until after Christmas, they can get washed away again. And then all this work gets put on hold, go to reassess, find out which changes are affected. If there's slightly different changes to this time,
I'd get the Director of Works to put a suitable time frame on it, Mr Mayor, of when he thinks it should be completed and put that to the successful tenderer.
Brett, do we have the power to do that though, given that that information probably wasn't in the tender documents?
Well, there definitely would have been dates in the tender documents, but whether that date was the 30th of June next year or I'm not sure, so I need to... So,
councillors, can I just ask, we're here for a day, can I ask that if we want to see what those dates are, that we defer discussion on agenda items 312 and 313 until we receive further clarity around the dates of completion?
100%. And Mr Mayor, yeah, happy to go with you there, but the other option you've got too is that you make that, you can put that to the successful tenderer and say, well, this is what we require because we need these roads tidied up in this time frame. But if that's not suitable to you, we'll call again.
It was difficult if we award a tender on it. If we do have a council resolution today awarding it, we just check what our position is with 312 with respect to what was called. We'll get some advice on that this morning and come back to that later in the day. Do I have a procedural resolution to defer? Councillor Peoples moves, Councillor Plum seconds, that we defer agenda item 312 until the receipt of further advice. Those in favour? Carried 6-0. Councillor, could I ask you to leave the room?
Yep.
Thanks.
Mr Mayor?
Sorry, we've dealt with that. We're on to 313 now. Councillor Peoples has a conflict of
Can I
interest.
just ask a question about the previous, before we go into
Yes,
that?
yes.
If you don't mind. Approximately, what percentage to all these figures here, the attended figures that come in, approximately what percentage of over and above that goes to the engineers, the GDA engineers, or engineers? There is an engineer's bill on top of that. Is that engineer's bill a fixed 10%, 15%, 20%? Can I ask that question, please?
Mr Mayor, it's hours worked. the engineers bill us on an hourly rate. Although, so we've got 2 engineers under contract, a full-time rate per month. So if they're the ones doing the flood damage, it comes in as part of their wages or part of their contract price.
Chris is not one of them now, really.
But Chris is doing that, then he's an hourly rate on top of this.
And those rates are in the, if you refer back through your records, they're in the back appendix B of the contract, engineering contract.
So, yes.
And that's at no cost to council.
It's all
Doesn't council assent.
There's no
paid by QRA.
There's no cost to council, but it is a cost on top of that.
Yes.
It's a cost to somebody, but it's no cost to the ratepayers.
And if we don't, it's no saving if we don't do it. Like, you can't claim that. It's not like we get a bucket of money and we pay these bills out of it and what's left's ours. You get a bucket of money, you pay these bills, and what you send back, what's not used is sent back.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. So the benefit here is it's time saver for us. We don't have to do it. And in some of these cases, they then project manage the entire thing from assessment, tender evaluation, close out and report back to QRA that the job's done.
Yeah. I understand that. I'm just looking, and it's a bug in lots of people's sides lots of times, is you're looking at different things here that, you know, Arnie's Lane is a backfill import, 9.6 cubic metres have got to be covered into a section. Oh goodness. Who did that? How do they work that out? When there's a breakaway gully there and there's 9.6 metres of material got to be covered in. Couldn't it be just 20 metres of road? Or anyway, that's an engineer's way of describing things.
Well, it's probably one step more than an engineer. It's the QRA auditors, councillor, who come in and see. They do the same spot checks because they are engineers.
That gets me back to another question involving all of this sort of material. Is who signs off on those jobs? Is it the director of works or the job supervisor? Who signs off to those jobs to know that that contractor has put that 10 metres of material in that particular spot? Or, as you say, the engineer's got to come back and take photos of exactly where it's all happened?
It's different on different jobs. So does somebody want to walk that Councillor Gleeson through that? So different jobs have different sign-off officers.
Ferdinand?
Yeah.
We receive completion certificates to say, yep, these works have been completed to our satisfaction from GDA, and then we act upon that. So I don't go out there and have that. GDA have got that total control over that.
Okay.
But Mr. Mayor, the senior work supervisors are overseeing that work as well. So they should be monitoring what's happening on the job, and then QRA will send their own auditors out. So they'll come out every 3 or 4 months. They'll go and they'll pick a road or pick a number of roads and say, take us out there, show us what the work that's been done, and then they check that the work's been done as well.
And then the council gets paid.
Well, council has to photograph. So we have to photograph all the roads before it's damaged, which we've done. Then once the floods, we get a rain event, we have to go out and photograph.
It qualifies. A rain event that qualifies as a disaster.
Qualified. We have to go out, photograph every 50 metres of road, every bit of damage, do up the claims. Then once the road's repaired, you've got to go back and re-photograph the same bit of road and send those photos in as well. So there's thousands of photos for every event.
Thank you.
Going to QRA.
Thank you. I wanted that to be on open.
Some of those,
Thank you.
some of those contracts that are let are done under full supervision, so that the contractor is responsible for. Like, that's why the packages are sometimes that thick. They're 700 and 800 pages. Other times they are supervised by the senior work supervisors. It depends on the location of them. A lot of these contracts that we've let north of Jericho, very long way from anywhere, so they're done through their own supervision part of the tender. Some of the ones that are done closer to our depots or closer to existing, the big thing at the moment is the senior work supervisors are tied up with construction jobs. So if the flood damage is occurring in a location close to where that is, then it's easier to supervise, and then they're responsible for that. But ultimately, it's the GBA engineer who completes the sign-off or receives the official certificate that Vlad's referring to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And there's, I'll just clarify as well that there's actually three types of flood damage, but basically there's emergent works and then the full repair work. So in the 120 days after the event, you can go out and do emergent works, which may be just a light grade or just fix whatever, just to make the road safe. So a lot of the ratepayers see that and think, oh, well, they haven't done the job properly, but it's only just whatever you have to do to make the road safe enough to drive on. Then you go back and do the full repair 12 months later.
The third type that Brett didn't talk is actually then, in the very first instance, is urgent works. If there's a critical, you know, you put in a sidetrack to get around a washed away bit of road, or so there's urgent, emergent and reconstruction.
Thank you.
Councillors, do we have a procedural resolution the same as we had for agenda item 312? Councillor Plum moves, Councillor Hanson seconds, that discussion and debate on agenda item 313 be deferred until the receipt of further information. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Rogers. 5-0. Right. Councillors can return. 3, 2, 1. I'll move that my report be received. 3, 2, 1. Seconded, Councillor Plum. Those in favour? 7-0. I had a number of other meetings just with landholders and ratepayers and small business people over Westec that were too numerous for me to even recall in some cases, but I just wanted to point out a couple of. One in particular is the meeting with he's the Assistant Roads Minister, but he was the senior federal government representative at Westec, Scott Buchholz, double H, we'll have to fix his spelling of his name there. Two things. One was about Rosie, so we just furthered our and the Outback Regional Road Group submission or thought around the Capricorn Highway and the strategic importance of that to the region and the need for link roads to that, such as Tambo Alpha, Aramac, Blackall, which I know is the Landsborough, all of these roads coming onto and off of it, and the importance of them receiving some consideration alongside the actual running surface of the Cap Highway. We also had a quite lengthy discussion around the Building Better Regions Fund, and there has been a considerable oversubscription, which has been confirmed subsequently in departmental advice to Brett. The government's currently undertaking an analysis of how they best apportion or decide on who gets in and who gets out because of the size of the oversubscription, whether there's any scope for them to increase the bucket of money to allow for more successful. So that is the grants that we have applied for funding for the Barcaldine pool through. So the longer that is delayed, it is purely on the basis of understanding how they can best fit more people into that bucket. So that's the advice I can give you out of that. And the last one there, we've been doing some considerable work and received around border crossing exemptions. Concerned about sharing, but also people who own properties in both New South Wales and Barcaldine Regional Council area. The current position is very tight, very, very tight, a lot tighter than it was 2 or 3 months ago. I think we're just working with the department, my advice was that we'll support the government to take the necessary actions to safeguard the health of Queenslanders in whatever respect it is. I don't think we're as exposed as perhaps Southern Downs or some of those councils that are right on the border where that's, you know, but I certainly am aware of a number of properties that this could potentially affect moving forward. But let's hope that our local shearing industry is well enough resourced locally for the time being. Any questions?
The Rotary in our Christmas function. Do you have anything to tell us on that? Are they going to go ahead with it, or are they interested in doing that?
So they're definitely going ahead with it. I've provided from the meeting that Rotary had with me a list of kind and other that they're looking for. Officers will be working through that and we'll communicate back with them.
And that's one of the village green, is it?
It's going to come down here and into the Workers' Heritage Centre.
Oh, okay.
It's in Beach Street.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's good.
Councillor Arthur.
Mr. Mayor, there's been no feedback from regarding the 60s and better funding since that's been compiled?
No, unfortunately.
Yep.
The timing for ministerial response would be very tight now. They would have to, like they're obligated to respond within a period of time.
Yep.
That letter there was a phone call into the office several weeks before that letter actually landed there, so, which also didn't, I haven't yet heard back from, so. I'm aware of some local governments in similar situations to ours have got alternative advice already on different things, so I'm not alarmed, but I'm starting to grow concerned about the timing.
Yep.
Less than 3 months really till shutdown, and we've got no clarity that the program will continue. I would suggest if we haven't heard by the next meeting that council will have a decision, probably an information report looking towards a decision in November about the program to give participants and staff some surety and clarity moving forward. If we haven't heard, there'll be more than follow-up letters. There'll be a ministerial visit, hopefully, from me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
To you, Mr. Mayor,
Oh.
I'll just add a comment to that, because
Yes.
I was speaking to the lady who looks after our area yesterday, and she has a very big portfolio, but they're working on it, but there's still just a few things they're tying up. So,
Okay. Oh, that's good.
So yeah, I did speak to her yesterday.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any more? Three, 3-1. Can somebody move the CEO's report, please? Councillor Arthur and Councillor Hanson, second. Those in favour? 7-0. Fred? Anything you'd like to lead us through?
Mr. Mayor, in terms of hedging, Jacka. I'm meeting with them next week with Outback Futures to finalise the agreement. We have the funding agreement with them, but how the agreement and how we're going to spend that money. Also, the Acacia Street bore. We've submitted the plans to the Department of Resources to extend that land tenure to cover all the infrastructure. The QTC will be here briefly tomorrow to talk about our corporate risk register. So I'll get an update then on where we're at with that. Just a reminder, the wet and dry plant hire closes on Friday. So if you know of any businesses that wish to tender, just remind them to get that in. Otherwise, take any questions.
Councillors, I have a smile on my face, nothing to do with Brett's report. At exactly 6 minutes ago, which would have been 1 minute before you asked the question, I received a letter from Minister Craig Crawford on email. I'll circulate it to councillors. Pleased to hear that the program is providing support. The department funds 43 programs across Queensland with recurrent funding of 3.7 million. Our 60 and Better program is one of those, as we know. He's advised that the department is currently reviewing the contracts for these services and will be working with providers over the coming months to let them know of ongoing arrangements well ahead of the current expiry of contracts on 31 December 21. So,
Timely, Mr Mayor.
he must have been reading your mind, Councillor Arthur, is what I would suggest. So I will circulate that to councillors and acknowledge the correspondence backwards.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor.
Questions for Brett?
For Brett, the Office of Liquor, what's that? I mean, Brett, the discussion for licensing hotels.
What basis can we close the meeting? Or do you want to give a very bland generic answer?
Mr Mayor, I'd rather close the meeting if we're going to discuss that item.
Trying to find a way that we can.
So, 254.
This one, F. Councillors, if you would like further information about that, I would suggest that it would be appropriate for council under section 254J3F, matters affecting the health and safety of an individual or group of individuals, would be the most appropriate manner for you to close the meeting on that.
I'm happy to move that, Mr Mayor, that we close the meeting.
254J3F,
Yes, please.
moved Councillor Peebles, seconded Councillor Gleeson. Any objection or debate? There being none, can we please close the meeting? Any questions further for Brett's report?
Mr Mayor, through you, Mr Mayor. The Town Common meeting regarding the Town Common Committee and the Botanical Gardens and the Barkey Red. I just want to ask the question: how is all that? Are all the different groups going to work together? Is it all going to work out okay?
Mr Mayor, we had held that meeting with the three groups. Councillors Arthur and Rogers were present for that meeting. So at the end, it actually went quite well. So it was agreed that representatives of those groups would then subsequently meet again, which they did do, and to review the maps of where the bike trails were, and that has happened. So there have been further changes to those maps so that so that some of those clashes of interest didn't occur.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay. Next agenda item, 332, Councillor Information Correspondence. Can I have somebody move that we receive the report? Councillor Arthur moves, Councillor Peoples seconds. Those in favour? Carried, 7-0. I'm just going to read out the item numbers. If anyone wants to discuss it, please say so. Item 1, letter of thanks. Item 2, letter of thanks. Item 3, letter of thanks. Item 4, the small cell installation. Councillors may not have all been aware of that. We're facilitating that. It was raised with me at our TMR meeting. It will be an important safety feature for that Aramac Torrens Creek Road. We'll allow for a check-in point there well out of regular mobile phone service range. It will be extremely limited. So the point of these, TMR have got a dedicated strategy. They're installing 8 of these across the Outback Regional Roads Group area. This is the only one in our patch, and to be fair, it's probably the only spot that needs one. Their methodology is A, having a check-in point, but B, forcing a stop, because the area is so short that if you tried to do it while you're driving along, you'd be in and out of service faster than you could have a phone call. So they're looking for people to pull up, take a break, rest, refresh, check in, send someone an Instagram photo of where they are and keep trucking. So there's a number of them in that southwest area where there's much longer periods of no service. If I can get I don't think we actually got it. It was put on a screen, a map of where they're going by Eric at our Outback Regional Roads Group meeting, but they're in some very good strategic spots. There's black spots in our area, but not many, and that's probably the biggest of them on a TMR asset. So that's what that refers to. 5. Some detailed advice on record keeping for councillors has been circulated. I just wanted to draw your attention to item 4 of that, and see if Councillor Peoples wanted to lead us through anything with that.
Oh, I think most councillors will be conversant with all that, Mr Mayor. I think they'd be up to speed.
So you didn't have anything to add to the social media guidelines?
No, I think the social media guidelines, I think they all know what they're doing there.
Right. Did anyone have any questions about any of that? There's some, a lot of it's not necessary.
Mr Mayor, we put all the full report in there because it is important.
Yes.
Because we've had, as we know, we have had a right to information requests which do ask for text messages and other social media messaging. So councillors need to be aware that what is a public record, and that if you do discuss council business on social media, that is a public record, and that needs to be copied and sent to the CEO, so it can be retained in our records.
Probably through you, Mr Mayor, it's probably a timely reminder for us to do a bit of a check of that when we update our registers of interest periodically as well, just to make sure that we're up to date with it.
It's somewhat easier for somebody like myself who has a dedicated platform on social media. So my Twitter and Facebook mayoral accounts are just entirely...
You tweet, Mr Mayor?
I read a lot of tweets. I reserved using Twitter purely for disaster management, and touch wood, I have not had to manage a disaster yet, so I haven't had to tweet. But yes, where you're using a private account and commenting on council business, or responding in your role as a councillor, that's where it is critically important that those copies are taken, screenshots, whatever, and forwarded. In my case, my whole platform is the repository for that information. So, yes, if you're not maintaining separate accounts, and it's also important to remember, as you've heard in all manner of training from the department, you are never not a councillor. You are never not a councillor. So it's possible that the public could perceive your response or interaction with any communication on any social media platform as your conduct as a councillor. So. All right, item 5 done. Item 6, Minister Littleproud opening the GABC rehab program. Item 7, Electoral Commission.
That's a review of the last election.
Well in front of the state average on most respects, which happens for 100% postal. You don't have to rely on people turning up. Lake Dun Field Day flyer. I think I must have overlooked that, sorry. Questions on that? And active game day projects. Brett? This will be one for councillors to make their community groups in there.
Yeah, so this is sport and rec funding that's came through at just before we put out the agenda. So that opens, it's called Active Game Day. They've changed the name. Opens on the 27th of September and closes on the 5th of November. So there's 2 types of funding that are available. One for lighting, for sports lighting, either install new lighting or upgrade of lighting, and the second is for playing surfaces. So if you could make your sporting groups aware of that.
Letter from the Department of Ag and Fisheries regarding fishing infrastructure grants. Same thing.
Once again, advice of funding that's available for fishing, boating and camping facilities.
All right, any further questions? I'll skip past my agenda in pages now. 333, Councillor Plum. Can I have somebody move that the Planning and Development report please be received? Councillor Rogers, do you move that?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Gleeson seconds. Those in favour? Carried. Questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do we as a council capture the dollar spends on an annual basis through our planning, just to see if there's trends upwards or downwards, or?
Mr. Mayor, yes. Well, we do it on an annual basis. I haven't provided a comparison over the years. We can do that. Maybe add that into the report. Maybe over the last
it was
5
just
years,
more so uninteresting to see whether
We do have
reduce
to, every month we have to provide this information to the Bureau of Statistics.
Right.
So they certainly receive that information, and there would be a report that they would produce for a fee.
Well, they release it themselves quarterly because it's the housing, there's a construction
Some
data
index
set
or
that's released. The same time the CPI figures are released quarterly, same day, different report. Yeah, and no, yeah, but you're out.
Oh,
Yep, no, that's fine. Thank you.
But we can add that to the current
Oh,
report.
no, it's,
Well,
not
it's just, it'll be easy, so easy to add that.
Okay, all good? No more? Councillor Plum now can come back and say. It's only Wednesday. God help us on Friday. 334. Can I have somebody please move we receive the economic development report? Councillor Gleeson, Councillor Hanson seconds. All right. Those in favour? 6-0. Right. Brett.
Mr Mayor, we're just waiting on the final report on the Aunt Emma bike trail. That was the report that was funded by TMR. I do have the preliminary report.
How scary.
I think it's 3.5 million.
Oh my God.
I said that softly.
But I heard it. Funny
We'll
problem.
see that. Yep. When we see the full report, we'll have that confirmed. In terms of the recreation park, we're waiting on Ergon to install the power. So I signed an agreement yesterday for them to proceed with that. So that we're just waiting on a timeline. Then the operational plan will have to be approved
By council.
By council, and the completion of the bank lorry before it can be opened.
So through this year, obviously October's not going to be an opening month for it. You've got to do all that.
No, Mr Mayor. The absolute critical thing is the bank lorry. That has to be completed to meet the conditions of approval. The power is not essential. So it will be, we just need that bank lorry to be completed.
And the operational
and then
plan.
the operational plan adopted. Dr. Lucy Redding from QUT is presently on site, conducting the water monitoring, the groundwater monitoring. other representatives from QUT came to Westec and had a stand in conjunction with council. I think that was very successful. We had 6 representatives from seven representatives from QUT attend, which was fantastic to develop that relationship. We're currently advertising for the next lot of interns that will come out over the Christmas New Year period. I think I'll just take any questions.
Councillor Gleeson.
Mr Mayor, through you, Mr Mayor, the emerging the truck stop development for the last 3 or 4 months, it's just new player interest and discussions continuing. Is that about all we can take?
Nothing's happened. Absolutely nothing's changed since
nothing's
first
changed
entered
in the
in
last 3 or 4 months. Okay.
So those, the people that are interested in that, Mr Mayor, are based in Sydney. They obviously can't get out. The intention was that they would fly out, visit the site. So it's all just been put on hold, obviously, because of COVID.
Thinking.
We are meeting with the gun club tomorrow to just keep them up to date with what's happening. We've had extensive meetings with Barcol Renewable Energy Zone, the Mayor, myself. It's probably at least once a week.
Oh. Is that all?
At least once a week. There's a meeting of progressing that development.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions on economic development? Thank you. We will break for morning tea.